Bhagyalakshmi Radhakrishnan, Cloud Modernization Lead at JP Morgan Chase & Co., and Soni Kumari, Principal Engineer at Wells Fargo, who will explore the challenges and opportunities in hybrid models and data modernization. Let us give it up for them, please.
Check. Hello everyone. Are you still with us? I know a little delay in the backstage
No, I don't have a presentation.
backstage activity, but I'm hoping that you will be able to pay attention to what we are here to talk on, and my friend Bhagya is going to just join us shortly.
Hey Soni,
Hey.
hi. How are you?
So I'm Soni. I'm with Wells Fargo, and I'm a principal engineer here. And how has been GHCI for you all? Okay. Bhagya, how has it been for you?
Yeah, very great. I
Sure.
mean, really seeing fresh minds here. Very happy to be here, everyone. A very good afternoon. I know it's a post-lunch second session, but we have something interactive for you guys. Yeah.
So I'll tell you, I had a kind of memoir or a bring back moment for me. So I was sitting at the book section, and what I noticed was there was a poet and the perspective. Now I didn't until I had that session, I was not I used to love poems, and that kind of brought back the memories that how much I loved them, right? So kind of a discovery for me, and has been an energetic and atmosphere and bringing back and seeing so many faces. I'm really excited today.
Yeah, I'm really excited too, and especially the topics that we have AI, cloud, IoT, all cutting edge technologies. I'm this is something that is very close to my heart, cloud modernization.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, GHCI, for this incredible opportunity. Yes, Soni.
Sure. So we'll be talking on hybrid cloud, the challenges what we face in hybrid cloud, predominantly the anti-patterns, and how do we absorb or use the practices to overcome those patterns. And Bhagya, what has been your experience with hybrid cloud?
Yeah, so in theory, if you know, before that, should we just check with the audience whether they know what hybrid cloud is? How many of them are using cloud? Can you raise your hands? Okay. So, have
Okay.
you used, are you using hybrid cloud or it's pretty much private cloud and public cloud? Okay. I see we have a pretty good audience here. So in
Okay.
theory, if you look at hybrid cloud, it offers the best of both worlds, right? In terms of reliability, in terms of scalability and cost efficiencies. But when we look it into practice, right?
Yep.
So there are definitely certain challenges. Right, so Soni will, my fellow speaker, she'll talk about some of the application development challenges while I cover some of the data modernization challenges, the anti-patterns and best practices. So
Sure.
what do you think is hybrid cloud from your perspective?
So in a very simple word, I'll tell you guys. So when I was a kid, my parents always used to tell me that sharing is caring. Is it not? So sharing is caring, and when I'm on hybrid, I'm really able to share resources with other, say, providers, right? And I'm not nearly paying the cost which if I would have to have the same infrastructure on my setup, which I will pay, right? So I really benefit from it. And looking back, if you see that sharing, I have shared chocolates, I've shared lunch boxes, and now I can share, it's really rich source of resources as well, right? So that is it for me.
And not just that, we are diving into the fascinating world of hybrid working model, right?
Yeah.
And you guys must be knowing about the hybrid working model. And now, with respect to infrastructure where on-premises meets cloud, we are pretty much into the hybrid world. So let's dive deeper into what are all the challenges and anti-patterns that you think we should avoid while adopting from the application perspective.
Sure. So most of the question begin from like, when are we migrating to cloud? When are we adopting cloud? And I mean, pretty much everyone wants to ask, can we not just bundle them for cloud? I mean, is that so simple? I mean, it would make sense that we bundle, we containerize and put it on cloud. But that is not truly the case. So what I'll start with is, when you try to adopt a hybrid model, which means that you are pretty much on-prem, right? You are already operating with a set of practices, and then you want to go beyond your on-prem infrastructure to the cloud, say, environment, and there what you see is an altogether new, say, beast, okay? And you may be unfamiliar with that beast, and for what happens is that you may not have the skill, so you may indulge like a skilled consultant to help you with this faster onboarding journey. And what I'll say, it's not about migrating or moving to cloud faster, it's never, right? You should be migrating to cloud with a perspective in mind.
Right.
Okay, so you should do your due diligence as an organization and then think about what are the strategic ways in which I have to migrate instead of being the first to the cloud. That being one, right? Second thing I'll say, I think we should do something with the audience. If I'm losing the audience here. If I were to ask you to go and shake hand with anyone here, can you just shake hands?
Can you shake hands with your
Please
neighbors,
shake hands with
whoever is
someone.
sitting? Yeah. Just hold your hand for a second. Please do
Everyone
not
is
let it-
shaking? Okay, can I see some hands? Is it possible for you to shake another person's hand without leaving that hand?
I mean, please don't use
very,
your
very innovative people. But I mean, okay, you didn't shake. So now what we want to put in here is that you happen to be in a state of a lock-in, right? And you have to understand that in your journey to be on cloud, you probably would choose a provider. And then what happens is that you may adopt a certain set of practices which are very native to the provider. Okay, more and more you do that, you tend to be in a locked in state. Okay, and it is very difficult to either migrate from there or even innovate from there. Okay, and look from a perspective that other providers may be innovating faster. So you are at a state, you want to innovate, but you are not able to innovate. Yes? So you would rather like to be in an open open state or a cloud native way. You want to adopt cloud, say migration. You want to adopt that migration.
Yeah, so when it comes to vendor lock-in, what Sony says is, so it's something similar to your wedding vows, something that you don't mean to make it, right?
Yeah.
So once you're tied, you know it's very difficult to come out of it. So please make sure that you don't tie too much into your vendor products, right? That is what we are saying when it comes to anti-patterns that you could avoid.
Yeah.
Just don't tie to your vendors too much. So avoid anything that is vendor specific features that you have when you're trying to build your application or your data. So when it comes to data perspective, vendor lock-in is what I would recommend is what we have done is to choose open source databases. Because today, if you look at open source databases, they have significantly matured and provide a viable alternative for many of the licensed databases, right? Because once you lock yourself with a licensed databases, then the cost overruns after a few years, and then it is going to prove very expensive. I think you would have had your experience as well, right? So what other anti-patterns that you think that we should avoid?
Sure. Another one which comes to my mind immediately is this decentralization, and this is a very tricky one. Okay, what you'll see is you want to give flexibility to your teams, and everyone will come and say that their application is different and they want their own set of flexibility. So you tend to give them that flexibility so that they are essentially experiencing faster time to adoption and like go to the market quicker. What happens with this is that you will have set of like many practices which will emerge in your organization, whether you are a large scale firm or you are a smaller scale firm. You do not want, you want to control that bit, right? Now, the problem with the control bit is how much do you control? Because the more you control, your innovation stops. So you're not essentially letting your team members to use the set of, say, offerings which are there by the cloud provider and only stick to the certain ones which are, say, promoted by the either the SMEs or who know the system, who has governed those systems. Right? So you want to avoid that tanglement which happens in there. So how many are Avenger fans? Very few. Okay, couple of them there. Who has watched the series Loki? Okay, some from there. Now, if you remember, there was a timekeeper in there and they used to prune the branches. Remember? And it was very essential to prune those branches, because if they don't prune it, essentially many timelines are going to emerge. And it is going to create a problem or a havoc into the system. So that pruning is very important. So is the case when you are upkeeping the cloud. So you cannot let a lot of resources going like creation and then like running, you may end up having a runaway cost in there. You want to manage them a bit, but then at the same time you want to let the innovation thrive in. Right? So you want to differentiate in there, and what happens is, Bhagya, I'll just add a bit here, is that you cannot account for those innovation as in capacity utilization into your system. Right? So monitoring is a bit tricky in there. So you don't say that my X amount of resources have been utilized, tomorrow I have to essentially provision for them. No, that is only your for experimentation, not for your constant infra needs. So that is what I have like seen predominantly.
Okay. So the other anti-pattern that I would say from the data perspective is, I know like data is very critical asset for any organization, right? So today we are living in the digital age. We would say this is one of the revolution, right? The digital revolution, where data is a very critical asset and a key enabler for businesses to drive data-driven insights for competitive advantage. So when it comes to data, the data governance, right, and compliance requirements are very critical. So neglecting such security compliances is going to prove very costlier, because there are very strict data laws, especially we are coming from the financial background, both of us, and there are certain laws for healthcare domain also, right? So having a solid framework from the data governance perspective is very crucial when you're migrating to the cloud. And the other aspect that I would like to touch upon from the anti-pattern is data silos and integration tools. So what happens is, in the hybrid environment, pretty much the organization that are focusing to adopt hybrid cloud, they try to have data both in on-premises and in cloud. So what happens is, pretty much sometimes the data is redundant on both the environment, and also the data, you have data one in the on-premise and then again in the cloud. So it leads to data silos, and without proper integration tools and proper access to integrate these two data. So these are some of the patterns that we have to avoid. So how we could avoid that is probably by building pretty much most of the organizations, as part of their data strategy, they create a data lake. Right? Data lake is a concept from data virtualization. It abstracts the data completely, so you do not know from which data source your data has been pulled, right? The producers, they publish the data from different databases, and the consumers, they access the data from the data lake. So this provides a very unified platform, one of the best practices that you could adopt, so that you can prevent data silos and have a very centralized access to consume such data.
Sure.
Right.
I want to add one more bit which is very important, and it is an anti-pattern, is lift and shift of applications. Now that may be one of the things which will come easy, but easy is always not right. And what you end up doing is, when you are quickly trying to migrate this particular application to cloud, you may reach to the cloud faster, but you will essentially have a bloated cost. Another thing you will experience is that these applications may show a later symptom of latency, and you will end up in like essentially rewriting it at a later point in time. So I'll say, instead of lifting and shifting, you should take this opportunity to modernize your application. you should try to essentially reason with your partners that the time I will invest in testing and releasing this application into production will pretty much be saved if I'm able to do this modernization at this point in time and not necessarily at some point in future. Right? So you have to be the advocate here because you are the members who can go and talk about it, right? Understanding this need.
Yeah, on the same aspect, right, lift and shift. So when the organization, right, if you're planning to lift and shift, and please make sure that you optimize it for the cloud. So without optimizing, then the data it could be very inefficient and it could perform very badly, and also there will be some additional operational cost. So what I mean by optimizing your data to the cloud when you're doing lift and shift is, I would like to take a case study, right? So there was one project where they had some 30 terabytes of data, and when they migrated to the cloud, the first thing they did is they did a proper assessment of their data. So from 30 terabytes,
Yes.
they were able to bring down the data to almost 18 terabytes.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a huge save in terms of storage cost. So how they did is they were a lot of data that was not really critical. They just moved the data that is critical and required to be moved to the cloud. And some of the data which was part of the historical data, they moved to the archival storage solution. So today cloud providers, they provide various storage classes, and they have some of the intelligent tiering, so using which they can decide whether the data has to stay on some of the standard storage classes or they can move to some of the archival. So when you archive the data or when you move the data to the cold storage, right, you're going to save a lot on the cost, right? Because it depends on how frequently you access the data.
Agree.
Whether you're going to access it frequently or infrequently access data. So you move the data accordingly so that you save a lot of cost on that. So lift and shift is not a bad idea. It depends on your organizational goals. Like if your timeline is very critical, then you could adopt that strategy, but please make sure that you optimize it to the cloud so that you reap the benefits of the cloud features.
Yep.
Right.
Sure.
So what other best practices that you think that we can accommodate from the application perspective?
So, I mean, one which immediately comes to my mind is you start small, then you scale, and then you adapt to what your needs are. That will give you a little bit of insight into what your capacity needs are once you have a cycle of it. Another thing I want to talk, and this is purely from the perspective that if you are a startup versus you are someone who is very established, working in an established organization, is startup has a need to like adopt faster. Time is very critical for them. They may be okay with the OPEX model of the cloud, right? But even when they have to mature, they have to rationalize the cost which they are incurring. So they will go towards, the idea would be to move towards the long-term leasing instead of those short-term capex based, your OPEX based models. So that would be one. If you're an already bigger organization who is like well established into cloud practices, then is to bucketing your application and then putting them for like usage, regularly monitoring them, and then seeing that what is the need. You definitely are going to use the exotic set of say offerings like AI ML based features which are there and which are easily accessible if you use it from a cloud world. Right? You don't have to build that capability in-house. You can train a model, you don't necessarily train a model so frequently. But when you train a model, you need like plenty of resources to train them. So keep an eye towards them, and then based on that decide that what workloads need to be on cloud versus what have to be on the on-prem side. That will be one of the, I'll say things we can do.
Yeah, so that point, having a phased approach is very crucial in terms of migrating to the cloud. And just wanted to add some of the best practices that we had embraced, right? So some of the organizations, what I have seen from my experience of 2 decades in software engineering and architecture is the organizations, they try to have some of the transactional data in on-premises and reporting data in the cloud. So that this is one of the architectural decisions most of the organizations take, to have the transactional in on-premises and reporting data so that you have only read-only data in your cloud. And of course, data governance and the security takes precedence in here. And other aspect is for disaster recovery also, right? So there are organizations where you want to have only standby data in the cloud and have the primary data in the on-premises, like the backups, the snapshots. So all these data can be moved to the cloud. So these are some of the practices that we have embraced in the hybrid model,
Yeah.
right? So anything else that you wanted to add, Sony? Yeah.
I think neighborhood is the key. I mean, I kind of see that you should know who your upstreams and downstreams are, whom are you going to read data from, write data to, and that will give you insight on whether you have to be on the cloud part of it versus you have to be on the prem part of it, right? So that decision will be driven pretty much from that area. Uh, Beyond this, I think at this point in time, with the time constraints we have, I think this is what I
Yeah.
wanted to say.
So the observability part, also the previous lightning talks, it was about the observability, right? So where you have a centralized observability monitoring for data as well. So where you're able to quickly find the root cause if something goes out. So having a centralized log analytics and
Yes,
management
yes, yes.
from the data perspective also is very crucial when you decide that you're able to trace back the data from the on-premise and to the cloud. So like we said, both application and data, it's all very crucial. So unleash the power of data, it's very critical.
Yeah.
So what I would like to add upon as a closing thought here is any inadequate architecture, it can definitely result in a substantial cost overrun,
Yeah.
right? So proper design is very key. There are a lot of tutorials out there. So proper design really can not only save cost, it can also reap the benefits of cloud native solutions.
Yes. So I think hybrid cloud in general is here to stay. You would be looking for a multi-cloud approach when you are adopting a hybrid cloud setup. That would be second bit. And third thing is like use cloud native and tools like Kubernetes or Terraform when you are setting up your like cloud identities. And then another thing is like think of it as like it's not a flywheel, right? Neither it is a perpetual motion machine which will keep running. So you have to nurture it, you have to cater it, you have to nurture yourself also, right? So is your cloud infrastructure. So yeah, with these thoughts I would like to leave the topic here, and then we are like
Yeah.
Bhagya can add.
Yeah, just on a final note, right? So do what is right rather than doing what is easy. Because rather than doing something in the short term, always think in the longer term. Understand your organizational goals.
Yep.
What is the objective of moving to the cloud? Why your organization is embracing hybrid cloud? Is it the cost optimization? You want to reduce on the licensing cost, or you want to reap the benefits of scalability because your data is going to grow exponentially. If you just look at Gartner's uh, research, definitely data is going to grow exponentially, right? So that is one of the primary reason why we are adopting to cloud, because compute storage have become a lot cheaper in the last decade compared to almost the previous decade, right? So
Right, right.
reaping the benefits of cloud and AI, if you really want to harness the power of AI, you need to have a very robust infrastructure. So that is one of the primary aspect why organizations are moving to the cloud. So always think about your architecture principles and do what is right, like I say. Yeah, with that, thank you. Any questions from the audience?
Hi Bhagya, hi
Yeah,
Sony.
thank you.
Thank you for the valuable insights you provided for the
My
hybrid
pleasure.
models. So I'm Vishaka Shetty. I have total 5+ years of experience and 3+ years of experience in financial technology, and that's why I'm able to relate more with you. And my question is more as you are from JP Morgan and you're from Wells Fargo. When it comes to financial systems and going with the hybrid cloud models, there are even further challenges with the data governance, as you correctly mentioned, and data
Yep.
sensitivity. There are few practices that are followed, like storing the data at rest as well as data in transit should be in
Right.
encrypted format. And the format, the architecture that you provided was making sure that we are only putting the snapshots into the cloud and keeping the data that is like the primary data on the on-premise
Yes.
services. So I just wanted to know more about like how are the financial services taking care of the governance, because any mislead of the data can lead to a huge reputation cost as well as the financial cost. So that's what I want to understand more.
Yeah, so I can take that one. So definitely, right? So that's a very good question. So when we are migrating data to the cloud, right? So you definitely need to encrypt the data, right? The data at rest or data in transit. So there are a lot of encryption, cryptographic algorithms that we need to leverage in order to encrypt your data. And like I said, data governance takes precedence, right? If your organization says that, hey, I have a regulatory and compliance requirements, and this data cannot move to the cloud, there are GDPR, there are HIPAA, there are several data laws from the financial sector, right? If your organization says that this data can't be moved to the cloud, then there's a period. You can't move it to the cloud, right? And only next, that is why I said that takes the precedence. Only after the regulatory and compliance requirements are signed off, that is when you decide, you architect, and then think about moving to the cloud. And definitely, right, from the financial perspective, if you look at, there are several classification of data, whether we classify data from the, whether it is confidential or highly confidential. Some of the data is public, right, the stocks and things like that. So the classification of data, depending on that, you you protect your data accordingly. So that takes precedence for sure.
If I may add to that, so, and this is not pertaining to banking per se, but there has been advancement into encryption mechanism. If you can go and read about homomorphic encryption, certain providers are even coming with allowing or doing, say, operation on top of your encrypted data itself. So essentially they are saying that you never have to decrypt your data. What is the cost of it? Like the compute cycle is going to increase, right? So you will definitely see a development in this area where we will find more and stronger ways to keep our data secure, right? We may pay that with the cost of computation, right? But if it is the need of the hour, then we will keep on using it. So homomorphic encryption is something you should be looking at. And I think Azure is already providing, if I'm not mistaken. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I will definitely read on that homomorphic solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone?
Hi, thanks for the great session. I'm Saranya Shekhar. I'm from Condé Nast, and I lead the BI and analytics team. So mine is a very broad question. Do you have any best practices for the reporting layer that you build?
Best practices for reporting?
Reporting layer, yeah, the aggregated goal layer that we build for reporting.
So for reporting use cases, right, so I spoke about data virtualization, data lake, right? So that is one of the, where you can have a unified data repository. So let's say you have different applications, they produce data, right? Rather than having it in multiple places, you create a data lake strategy. And for reporting use cases, you can just consume data from the data lake, right? So that is one of the strategies that pretty much most of the organizations are leveraging for the reporting use cases.
So the reporting tools directly connect to the data lake tables.
Sorry?
The reporting tools directly would connect to the data lake.
Correct,
yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's an echo. I'm not able to.
Do we have more questions? Are we good? Okay. Well then.
Okay. All right, yeah. Thank you, Soni. Thanks, it was really nice meeting
Thank you so much, Soni and Bhagya Lakshmi, for sharing your expertise.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to invite the session chair to present a token of appreciation to our speakers.
She's there, she's taking picture. Oh, thank you so much.